was just talking to our guests that, why essentially I set resolutions is because it gives me clarity as to what to do when there is nothing to do. Pretty
Yeah.
much, because otherwise, when things are going in full swing, when things are going in full flow, you are going
Yeah.
with the flow. But uh, just the fact that, you can sort of have yourself a direction in which you can steer yourself, it just helps a lot. So what's
True.
what's
I agree
your
with that.
thing
Yes,
with?
good. I like that word actually. Direction. Resolution gives you direction. So long as it's not something that we don't impose on ourselves, right? And then when we take ourselves as from the previous year, like, I don't know, Janat or Rupa from 2018, and drag into 2019 as, God, I didn't, fulfill what I was supposed to do. I was a failure. So in
Yeah,
2019, this is my resolution, right? There's very little self-care in that. There's very little compassion in that, right?
true.
But I like the word that you use, direction. So if I go into a new year saying, this is the direction I would like to go to, and for many people that I encounter from the clients and, just everyday life, I feel that one of the directions that has been very little explored, funny enough, is self-care. So I
True.
think that if someone sets their mind and saying, what, this year I'm actually going to dedicate more time to me, not as in being selfish, but actually being a responsible adult who can learn how to self-regulate, how to recognize certain, emotions arising, states arising, and how can I deal with that? That, I think, that a lot has to do with self-care, and also how to replenish, how to make sure that we are resourced. Yeah.
True. True.
So I think that is a great direction to go into, for example. And to have that kind of resolution is a great start to New Year. Yeah,
Oh,
that's a lot of compassion there. That's a lot of also understanding towards what you have done in the past year, and without kind of, putting it to complete zero and saying, oh, whatever I did that
yeah.
out, let's forget that. I'm starting from scratch. I'm starting from a new, completely white sheet of paper. That's great, but let's, you had life before that, and it's a calendar year, so let's make it. How can we combine the two? How we can take what you did in 2018 and, kind of multiply the good in 2019. So I think resolution can help with that.
True. Then when most people say they want to go with the flow, now somehow going with the flow for me sometimes just leaves me lost and directionless on a day when there is nothing much to engage myself in. Let's put it that way. If I'm not engaging myself outwardly, so for example, in our profession, right? If I don't have a goal or a resolution, so you say, and on a given day, if I don't have any client calls, for example,
Yeah.
it just feels very lost. So how would going with the flow on those days, what would that mean? Going with the flow on that day, for example.
Good. That's when we don't have, we have to have our mind engaged, right? That's what I'm hearing. If you
Yes.
ask. Yeah.
Yes.
When we don't, we tend to fall into the negative thinking, like, am I doing enough? Is this right? Am I enough? Or am I being lazy? Or am I being, is there something that I forgot to do? So we get into this kind of this loop, which is quite has a very negative sort of background, right? So
Yes.
how I see going with the flow on these days and generally is to be with each and every moment. And you can introduce direction in each and every moment. That's what I believe in, right? So you don't necessarily, what is it that I feel right now, for example? I don't know, maybe in a given moment when you ask yourself that question, maybe you're thirsty.
Yeah.
Have you had your water today, right? So
Yeah.
you can then
Yeah.
turn, and then, you know, it's ridiculous, but people who don't know when to eat when they're hungry. A lot of people don't.
True.
They
Yes.
don't know,
Yes.
they don't know when to drink when they're thirsty, and they don't know when to rest when they're actually tired. So how, you know, that is also going sort of with the need of the body and going with the flow, right? So
Mm.
it's not something what you can control. So going with the flow is basically giving in. It's not giving up. A lot of people think that if I give up,
Yes, exactly. It just feels like, going with the flow, like, I'm not going to do anything wherever, like, destiny takes me. It just feels
yeah,
that a bit. But what you're kind of talking right now sounds more and more about being present. I'm feeling that, going with the flow essentially means being present to that moment.
absolutely. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Yes, being present. And that means responding to what is happening, kind of having that general awareness of what is happening inside of me, right?
Mm.
With my emotional state, with my mental state, with my physical body, right? And what is happening
Yeah.
outside of me, right? Whether you're in the office, right? Sometimes you look at the watch, you look inside of yourself, you're hungry, but you look around and there's no time for that. However,
Mm.
even recognizing that need and saying, you know what, I'm hungry and I'm gonna eat maybe in half an hour later, I'm going to postpone my lunch by 1 hour. As simple and ridiculous as that sounds, even recognizing that need and postponing, that gives already that bit of compassion that you need. And that is
True.
already going with the flow, right? So what is the
Mm.
flow telling you right now? That you don't really have time to eat at this particular time, but you have recognized that basic need and you will respond to it. And so that by, bit by bit, I feel like, you kind of every day by recognizing what is it that you're actually feeling and experiencing, you build up that base that gives you this nice cushion of kind of self-care that you can land on in the times of which are harder, which we all face.
True. But isn't there a danger of procrastination in this, which typically everybody faces that, hey, I am hungry right now, so I will postpone my goal. I am feeling tired, so I will postpone my goal. I feel like going out right now, so I will postpone my goal. So then, how do we kind of balance that with not getting into the zone of procrastination?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Yeah, thank you for asking because it's quite common. It's quite
Yes,
common.
it
A lot of people
is.
say,
It
like,
is.
but I feel like I'm gonna be lazy, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
it's this big
exactly.
fear.
So,
Yeah, this is because the society tells us that we have to run, right? The minute
yeah.
you stop, you're procrastinating. Actually, a procrastination I see very rarely. I know almost zero to none. I maybe we know one, two people out of, I don't know, thousands of people who actually procrastinate. And
Hmm.
this is a very rare occasion. Normally, people get that conflict inside of us that we create by not recognizing what is it that we're actually feeling, and the outside world which is demanding and saying, do, and
Mm.
then we respond to that. And then when we don't respond to what we're feeling internally, this creates resistance, and this resistance creates that mode of freeze that we go into, which a lot of people call procrastination. But it's not procrastination, it's freezing. Because my emotional body, my mental body, my physical body go into this freeze mode when I'm like, my needs have not been recognized so many times, I don't know how to respond anymore. Because
Mm.
all I'm asked to do is to respond to the outside world, give and do, give and do, right? So, and then we're like, and then on those rare occasions when we allow ourselves to breathe out,
Yeah.
actually what we do is we don't do anything. And that's normal because the body is so tired the mind is so tired, the heart is so tired that all you can think of is just lay flat and do nothing.
True. True.
Because we're
So
tired
I
also.
like that word. I like that word where you mentioned that, it's basically that we just freeze because it's like a choco block happening in our head where
Yes.
there's a conflict of, what internally what we are feeling, what externally we are expected to do. So in the
Yes.
moments of such freeze, which ultimately leads to lying flat, and then that's what results in, okay, in Surah terms, it's procrastination for many. Okay, but my
Okay.
question is like, so when you hit that freeze and you can actually feel that, you're frozen,
Yeah. Yeah.
are there any tools or techniques which you can share to just unfreeze or, just kind of melt our thoughts and kind of find perhaps at least a thread to take forward?
Yeah. Okay. That is a very good question. Also very common, right? Because
Yeah.
again, the mind prompts, okay, I'll rest, but you have to tell me what do I do next, right? So it's kind
Yes.
of like a bit of a
Yes.
conditioned rest. So what I say right now, none of this works until you do it.
Okay.
Okay. So whatever I will say, it has absolutely no value until you try.
Okay.
So what I've seen working, and this from personal experience and from working with clients, is to go, really baby stepping, micro stepping. Because if
Okay.
you reach the point when you're so exhausted that all you want to do is lay, and just be in this horizontal position, that means that you have exhausted quite a few of your own resources.
True.
So in this state, I would say the best thing to do is to rest whenever you can, and that if you can't afford to, I don't know, for mothers to sleep at night, for
Yeah.
office workers, you cannot allow yourself rest during the day because you're from at least 9 to 6 you're at work, right? And then many more other examples. I would say find those 5 minutes in the morning, at lunchtime, whatever, and in the evening. And people sometimes tell me, you know what, I don't have that privacy in the office. I just don't have that privacy. I don't at home I don't have that privacy. What do I do? I say, all right, do you go accompanied to the bathroom?
No, that's somewhere we all go alone.
Okay, good. So at least that place is, other people free. So you go there, you make sure you lock the door, and you set your timer for 5 minutes.
Okay.
And whatever you can do is, I would say my favorite technique is to find the breath as you are without changing. Because the minute you start to change your breath, you're thinking, oh, then you get into this negative loop thinking, oh, am I breathing right? Is this enough? What is my yoga teacher going to say? Or, what is, I don't know what Rupa is going to say. Is Janat going to approve?
True.
There's a lot of that thought. And I say, find your breath as you are and stay with it for 5 minutes. Even if it's a shallow breath, even if it's at one point you're like, I'm not sure how my breathing pattern is strange. Whatever it is, do that. If you can if you can sit down or find a horizontal position for 5-10 minutes, that's great. I would say lie down, and even if you can't nap, lie down.
Okay.
And breathe out and lie down. And do the timer, because when you start doing it at first, the mind is so busy with so many thoughts that out of 5 minutes you might get 30 seconds if you're lucky.
Yeah. So it's like, you say 5 minutes, but I am just speaking out of my experience that I think it takes 5 minutes for me to get out of my head and to
It
even
does.
find my breath, so to say. Like you said, I'm influenced that, okay, oh my God, I'm breathing shallow. Let's start breathing deep. And I'm just not able to do it. So it's like you said, just in many ways, actually, what you're saying and what's coming to my mind right now is acknowledge who you are in those very 5 minutes. I think,
It's
yes.
like being with what you are. So the goal is not
Yeah.
to change, right? The goal is not
Yes.
being
Yeah.
with with whatever you are. If you start itching and you can't
Mm,
stop, be with that. And
mm,
if you can find a sprinkle of compassion for that
mm.
person who's itching, or for that person who can't stop, just twitching,
Yeah.
have this fidgety hands or leg or whatever. If you can find that sprinkle of compassion for that person for those 5 minutes, maybe you will have a slightly better day
True.
and a slightly better year.
Yes, of course, because if you have compassion for yourself, just imagine how much baggage reduces. You're
Oh,
understanding yourself in that very moment that, hey, you are having a busy day. Hey, you're trying to cope with so many things. It's okay. Just be, just be. And I think it's kind of enveloping yourself in self-love at the end of the day because of that.
absolutely,
Even
yes, I so agree with that.
yeah,
Yeah.
so what I've so from where we started with the resolutions and balancing out with going with the flow, what I feel is, while you're engaging yourself in fulfilling those resolutions,
Yeah.
there may be those days where it just feels that you're lost. At that time, it becomes very necessary to find your flow and the flow of you, who you are in that very moment, and
Absolutely.
accept that. So it's not like you're going to be fighting against that, oh my God, why are you feeling tired? Why are you feeling tired? But it is acknowledging, hey, you're tired today. And that
Yeah.
essentially is basically then being present and then going with the flow that, okay, so if I am tired right now, what is it that I need most? And having that
What can I do
compassion.
for myself, right?
Yes,
And
absolutely.
hence for others, if you're worried about work, how can that affect my productivity? If you're worried about family, if I'm tired, how can that affect my family?
True.
So it's not, we are never completely and solely alone, in our quest. We're always, in interaction with others. So our state affects others, their state affects us. So
True.
that's what it actually is. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that perspective. I think, all set to go with the flow, and at the
Yeah.
same time, be very crystal clear with, what I want to achieve.
Yeah, with the direction, right? So I like that.
Yes,
When you set your resolutions, your personal resolutions, and I appreciate that. When you say I'm going in a certain
this
direction.
way. Yeah, that's the direction which I've chosen. So you have a chosen
So
direction, and yet you know how to handle yourself when you have blockages going towards that direction.
yes, yes. And it might change with as you explore yourself, and that's all right too. It's okay to change
Yes,
direction.
absolutely. Yes. So it might just so happen that, 3, 4 months, I'm just feeling tired because I'm chasing after something which at the end of the day is exhausting for me. So it also gives me that much space to kind of reevaluate, is this the place where I want to go? Is this the direction which I still choose for myself? Or
Yeah.
is it time for me to kind of change my priorities a bit, or like go slightly in a different direction? And that would probably be going with the flow, as we call it.
Yes, yes, yes. So there's none of if I can sum up,
Yes, please.
making a resolution and going with the flow, these are not things that exclude each other, right?
True. Yes, in fact, if
They're
you
not
include,
contradictory.
yes, in fact, they kind of go hand in hand. And it's only actually if they go hand in hand will you actually be at ease.
Yeah. Yes.
Because
True. True.
yeah, because you're showing compassion for yourself, who you are every single day of the year. And if that can happen, you're forgiving yourself, you're releasing so much of baggage, and you find courage to go ahead.